The center was donated to the Chesapeake Audubon Society, which is incorporated its chapter in Maryland in 1981. The chapter is based out of Baltimore. They had purchased a property in the mid-70s in Dorchester County that they still own. It's about 600 acres, depending on the tide. If you like mosquitoes and poison ivy, it's quite lovely. But they had an idea that it would be a jumping-off place for education programming. The reality is it's in Toddville. It's way out there. So the story goes that the Olds family contacted National Audubon. National Audubon says, sounds great, but because it doesn't have a large endowment, you should really probably talk to the local chapter. The local chapter was already interested in education, so this was a good match for them. So over the first 10 years of the center's existence, the Olds family and the chapter kind of, muddled through of figuring out what the goal was, and ultimately that was to provide education primarily to youth about the outdoors. So the center, within that time frame of the early, first 10 years, developed its own board that would be based here in Talbot County, as opposed to the Chesapeake Audubon board, which is in Baltimore, just for kind of, the ease of being here.
Yeah.
The center for its first 20 years, like any small nonprofit, has its ups and downs financially. In the late 90s, Audubon opened a state office in Maryland, and at that time, the person who was director here became the state director and convinced the local board to become basically part of National Audubon. Stuart Strahl, who was the nephew of the donors, became the director, and at that point, things really started to ramp up. So in the early 90s, the school system was revising their curriculum, their science curriculum, to include environmental education in it. And he kind of got in with them and helped them do that, and included field trips in the curriculum. So from there, that is kind of the base of where everything that we do today kind of grew from. Besides myself, there are 2 other full-time people who live here, and then we have an apartment for our seasonal staff, which is a 2-bedroom apartment, which is really good because it allows us to attract people from all over the place. So over my time here, we've had 150 different interns or seasonal educators, so it kind of keeps things fresh for us, and we get all kinds of new viewpoints and ideas, and yeah, it's been kind of fun. And typically, and this is how it is now, half of the people who work here are former seasonal educators. Our industry, so to speak, has found it very difficult to measure what we do in a statistical sort of way, since a lot of experiences that we have with students are, we might see them for a day or 2. So it becomes hard to measure. What we do tend to see is that with kids who specifically come here for summer camp programs and then end up being counselors in training, we see them move into conservation careers, and when they move into other careers, they move into those careers with a conservation ethic. So we've been here long enough that we start to see at least tidbits of information coming back that indicate the examples of the types of results that we're kind of looking for, which is people who are out there who are going to be stewards of the Chesapeake Bay and act as stewards of the Chesapeake Bay, not just having something in the back of their head. Our sense of what the Olds desired was that this would be available to the public, so we don't charge admission for that reason, and we want people to be able to come out and walk around whenever they want. So we're open dawn to dusk every day. So we don't know how many of those people there are. I'll come back to that. There are 9,000 school contacts a year. So if we see you twice, then we count you twice. If we see you 2 separate days. So that's through school programs, and then through festivals, that brings us up to about 13,000. And then we estimate that there's somewhere between 7,000 and 10,000 casual visitors a year. So somewhere in the 20,000 range is what we think. When I started here, there was a sign at the entrance, and that was it. And we're pretty confident everyone who drove in here was confused. If you didn't come on a yellow school bus, you didn't come. So we used to have Saturday office hours, and if you worked on Saturday, you got a lot of reading done. Over time, there have been a number of programs, the Chesapeake Bay Gateways Network by the National Park Service, that have helped groups like us really improve our signage and how we welcome folks. So we think now that maybe only half the people who come here on their own are confused, which is a drastic improvement. and there are people here on every nice day, and there are people here on some not so nice days. So it's getting used. Our goal is for the community to use the place and use it as a place to explore the outdoors. But obviously we do get a lot of people who are staying at local bed and breakfasts and all that kind of stuff. Focus here is environmental education for school students. So there isn't anyone on the Eastern Shore proper that is providing the kind of quantity and quality of experiences that we do. So there are a lot of groups that are doing some great stuff that is part of what they do, but it's not really the focus of what they do.
Are you talking about the mid-shore area, or do you feel like the whole...
Specifically, I think the mid-shore. I think you get up into Kent County, you see some great groups like Sultana and Echo Hill, and then further up you have North Bay that are kind of doing some pretty thorough things. But when you get down in our neighborhood and south of here, it becomes a lot more piecemeal.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of groups, from here south that are doing things, but they're also, involved in water monitoring and other things that are typically seem to be higher priorities. I mentioned that we have 4 miles of trails. We have made a number of habitat improvements over the last 10 years. So we now have nearly 100 acres of freshwater wetlands. Our most recent project was completed this past summer. So it's in kind of a neat state of growth where we have initial vegetation, but it's not fully grown up. We've also installed 25 acres of meadow this year. And around all of those habitats will grow new trails also. So we continue to kind of improve the place for people to explore, and we want people to feel like they can come back and have new experiences each time.